Stephen Mack from the People's Party of Canada. As we've said, this is a conversation, not a sort of a fire question answer period. So I think we just start with if you want to give us an idea of who you are and why you're doing this, and just a quick overview of your party and your thoughts.
Well, I'm a proud Canadian who lives in Victoria Harbour, right here in Simcoe North. I was born in Toronto and raised there, went to school here in Canada, but I spent my childhood summers on the shores of Georgian Bay. So this area is what I think of as home when I think back of where I belong, and I still feel I belong, and that's why I'm part of why I'm running for office. And I'm an engineer by profession. I own a company called Makk Design. We have a factory in Victoria Harbour and a R&D lab in Midland. And I'm very proud to say that we manufacture pretty well smartwatches right here in Simcoe North. And yes, you can do it. You can make high-tech electronics here in Canada. And I even export to China, Korea, Australia, everywhere. And we often beat our competitors on price. And I'm quite excited about the general trend of onshoring. So I'm a staunch supporter of self-sufficiency and free markets, free people, free speech. There's a common word there. And I'm a family man, got two adult sons. They work in my business. It's a family company. We've got about 25 people. So that's what I do in my day job, but I also volunteer. I'm a president of a local homeowner association, so I try to be a facilitator. And actually in organizations like that is where I learned to become the person that helps people avoid misunderstandings and talk them down from the ledge or from the fight and try to understand all sides of a conversation. And I really honestly try to understand all different political voices. I admit that I'm hard to categorize myself. I politically describe myself as a libertarian, or perhaps more accurately as a classical liberal.
Mhm.
And with all the wordplay people use and using descriptors and epithets, well, we can always get into trouble. I have some conservative views. I have
Mhm.
some socially highly progressive views, and I know it's annoying to people when you're one of these oddballs that's hard to fit in a bin. Yet saying that, I would propose that I might be actually the optimal representative for this region, because I could probably steelman my rival competitor, my rival candidate's positions pretty well if that was the contest. And I'm even was thinking of doing a debate like that where we get them all in a room and you draw a slip and okay, today you're this and you're going to have to do your best job trying to play that. And I do that in my mind.
Mhm.
And if you talk to people in the political world here in Simcoe North, I think I'm proud of the fact that I'm, if not liked, at least considered a fair dealer and reasonably open-minded. So I'm in the fray. I've run it as candidate here twice before, 2019,
Yep.
2021. And I love this. Running as a candidate has changed my life and I think has turned me into a better person. So there's selfish reasons for doing it. And I'm I'm not looking at real estate in Ottawa quite yet. But I'm motivated by knowing I might be planting trees that I may not eat the fruit of, but future generations might, because I do believe that the PPC's rise is inevitable. If I had to summarize, I'd like to tell people, look, have you had enough yet of the red, blue pendulum seesaw or whatever you want to call it? We've had 60 years of this weird tag team, and things are going in a certain direction, have been going to more government, less freedom, bigger deficits. And right now we're seeing, I guess I'd have to say, generally more unhappiness than ever before in Canada. And those that say, the two mainstream parties are your main choices in this American style duopoly, I find that disturbing. And I also think that the dynamics of politics mean that in a first past the post system, you end up gravitating towards the duopoly without a difference. And I think the rancor and I guess oppositional thinking and tribalism right now does give me feelings of despair because the differences are so minor, yet the level of anger is so high. This is not good. And I'd like to find ways to fix that. And I am proposing a solution. I mean, the corny thing I say is you take red and blue and mix them up, you get purple. And that's
Mhm.
true because PPC are classical liberals. And we're like balanced budgets, like Paul Martin.
Yeah.
Or I love to put Wilfrid Laurier quotes out there. Canadians are free, a free people. Freedom is our nationality. Wow, would you believe a modern liberal saying that? No, but the old days they said it. Conservatives said amazing things. Tommy Douglas, I quote him, but I just don't get inspired by our present leaders. Maybe I'm just an old guy, but I don't put him in the same bin as some of our great people of the past, and even before I was born. So oratory, principle, and being a lawmaker and a representative, those things are lost. And I would like to just generally say, and this is perhaps a veiled promotion of the PPC, the skills required to get elected do not really overlap the skills needed to govern effectively. And right now we have this weird marketing stuff going on and mob mentality and watching the TV too much and not talking to our neighbors. So sorry for rambling, but I thought I'd
That's
give
okay.
a flavor of how I look at things.
Sure. So we went out to people of Tiny and asked them what is on their minds and what they're thinking about going to this election, and some themes came up. So we're going to start with the affordability and cost of living. So everyday people in Tiny and across Simcoe County are feeling the pinch at the grocery store, the gas pump, even when trying to buy a house. It's gone a little crazy, and people who are retired on fixed incomes are wondering what they're going to do. So if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I think that is, if we take away Trump derangement syndrome and popularity contests, that is truly the top, in my opinion, the top concern of all Canadians. And Tiny in particular, well, I'll pick off a little one. I really don't like what's happening with Tiny Council and what they're doing with that huge building and how much the taxes are going to go up. I mean, I'm federal, but I feel passionately about that issue, and I've been seen in the municipal uh, council chamber in the audience, and there's been articles about, ooh, this supposed far right guy was there with his cronies or some dumb thing like that. Yet I'm high-fiving all my progressive friends. It's on camera, like I'm as a citizen. So I certainly don't like government. Like affordability, let's pick off an easy one. There's too many taxes, too many fees, and they put a wet blanket on everything. And as far as, say, social programs are concerned, the best social program is a good job. Let's not just talk about the cost side of affordability. Let's also talk about the revenue side or the income side. People aren't making the money that, say, a breadwinner in a family used to make. So this is a multi-dimensional issue. I don't have silver bullets about affordability, but I will say a cross-cutting issue is mass immigration. My party raised the alarm in 2019, and we were called racist, xenophobes, and all kinds of names. Yet today, we're the I told you so party. We are the only party that represents the mainstream Canadian opinion on mass immigration. And it's not just the permanent residents here becoming citizens, all those student visa overstayers. It's the temporary foreign workers when Canadians are unemployed. We're putting refugees in nice hotels in Toronto while disabled veterans live in a tent in a ravine. That's disgusting. And so immigration is cross-cutting in all dimensions. It strains our social services. It absolutely strains our housing availability, especially in large cities, but it's not just restricted there. It's the demand outstripping supply is basic economics. And Toronto and Vancouver are the big centers where all these mass immigrants come in. They're reducing the quality of cities, overstripping the city's ability to provide services, our healthcare system strain, and this it strains the environment. I mean, this is putting pressure on our environment in all directions, not just, climate change, but what is the right population for Canada? There's a theory out there, a very traditional way of thinking, that you always pay for things now in the future, and that is you need to have indefinite growth forever. Well, Canada used to have a lot less people, and I would argue that it was run just fine, and the quality of life was just fine, and we could do it again. And no, the economy doesn't need more people. If you view the economy as a Ponzi scheme that needs more marks, as the Liberals and NDP do, yeah, you got to bring in suckers and milk them. But that's not fair to the immigrants. So please, I'm not blaming immigrants. I'm blaming terrible government policies about kicking the can down the road. Immigrants get old too. They need health care. It's not really taking the pressure off. And our economy doesn't need more people. Our culture doesn't need more people. Only our welfare state, deficit funded and funded by quantitative easing or money printing, that's the only thing that needs this mass immigration. And this is a totally different question from what we may be missing certain specialized labor, or we need professionals to. Our immigration system, our point system, is actually pretty good. When Trump wanted to implement the same thing in the US, they called him a racist. So, go figure. So I'm not against immigration, but the PPC's platform is right now to put a moratorium on immigration, deport all people who are here illegally, like visa overstayers, with some exceptions for people fleeing true persecution. For example, Hong Kongers who may be suffering from bureaucratic delays. Again, I don't want to drift off into nuance here, but basically we got to turn off the tap of immigration, and that is going to be a major thing that takes pressure off the cost of housing. I mean, there's many other things we can do. Monetary and fiscal policy. I mean, we have had inflation. And after the COVID lockdowns and so forth, the PPC was out there ringing the alarm and say, hey, if you're printing money to hand out to idle people, the inflation hangover is going to be terrible. Now, we were called mean and heartless, but we were right again. And we are against these government programs. When something bad happens, oh, we'll fire money cannons at all the sad or worried people. Well, that's vote buying. Carney says, I'm going to put, I don't know, X billions into the auto industry. What's that mean exactly? Are you going to nationalize the means of production? Are you going to, I don't know, just pay workers to build nothing? Or are you just going to turn it into some kind of corporate welfare slush fund? Which is, I think, what really happens. You get nice sound bites. You sound like you're on the side of the workers, but Canadian workers have been getting screwed for decades. And I'll tell you a strange thing: of new PPC members, a third at least over the last couple of years are ex-NDP. The story the Conservatives say that we're vote splitters, that we're ruining it for the Conservatives somehow, is bogus. We know exactly what people voted for before. And our biggest support base is not traditional non-voters. Yeah, there's about 15 to 20% conservatives, and then the rest used to be with the other parties. So I think there's something there. We get mischaracterized. I know that. I know that's the game. The media doesn't like us. The establishment doesn't like us. We're an anti-establishmentarian party. We are rebels. We are against the power elite. Well, we're not against. We don't want a war. We don't want a revolution, but we want to fix and reform the system. So call us right wing. Think back to the French Parliament. We weren't part of the ruling class. We don't support the ruling class, and we want to take their power away. If we were at that PPC, were at the French Parliament where the left and right were originally defined, which side would be on? We'd have the left side. Okay, so I don't want to get into left wing, right wing, because I don't even know what it means anymore. It's become an epithet, and I don't know where I stand. If you look at their political compass, I'm in the bottom half in the individual liberty side, and I care more about state power versus individual power. And a third axis I would like to add to a 3D political compass is populism and technocracy. So we're a populist party. We believe that the vector of control should not be from the top down, but from the bottom up. Yeah, that's hard to do. It requires engaged citizens. But I tell you, if we can push government back, people can move forward. And that, in very general terms, is how we would affect the affordability question. I mean, there's also other things like getting into how asset bubbles get created. Well, when quantitative easing occurs, bonds are issued. Who buys the bonds? Rich guys. And the rich guys have no damned patriotism about Canada. They're not investing in productive capacity. What do? They pump a darned real estate asset bubble. And they want to have corporate ownership of rental accommodation to milk the public. That's like a tax. Again, to us, populists, there's an elite, there's an establishment, it's the government plus the media plus the Laurentian consensus. Plus, I will say, some union leadership has become pretty darned authoritarian and out of touch with their people. And if they don't become old-fashioned syndicalists and workers getting together to do something locally, they're going to lose their place. I see that happening already because I talk to working class families, say steel workers in Hamilton, right? They've been union all their life. Hey, I got no problem. But then they get a pamphlet at their dinner table. Now, these people have conservative views, a lot of them. They don't want their kids watching some kind of weird gingerbread crap unicorn at school. And then they get their union newsletter that says, oh, hey, let's all go out to free Palestine. What? I just want better pay and not to be crushed by the machines at work. Come on, guys. Or let's go all join the Pride Parade. No, I don't want to do that. What's that union got to do with it? So I'm rambling a bit, but I think this populism is a way of, and with libertarianism, that is self-sufficiency. And what I'd say, the challenge to the PPC is imagining us forming government. We would simplify government, streamline it, stick to the basics and get them right. By getting rid of dumb projects, yeah, we would Doge Canada, but not in quite as brutal way. But we would get rid of vanity tax breaks and vanity projects to protect the core. That's pensions and healthcare. But we have to have an adult conversation about fiscal responsibility and yes, perhaps austerity at times, because we need to maintain the viability of core functions. Now, I can get into how we deal our platform on healthcare and all, but on the housing thing, I'd also add it's too easy for foreign ownership on a speculative basis to pump money into Canada, which actually hurts housing availability. And in my pet thing for housing availability is changes to the admittedly Provincial Landlord Tenant Act, which I don't think we even need. We don't need the tribunals. And if you made eviction at will based on non-payment of rent or violation of a lease and make it fast, you would open up rental units all over the place because small landlords will get back in the game, but they're terrified of getting a deadbeat tenant that they can't get rid of and who may wreck the place. I know it sounds ugly. I know it sounds cruel. And I don't want to say that poor people are criminals. That's a slander that we often hear, but the honorable poor deserve every advantage. A young family trying to get going, a single mom trying to get by. I want those people to get the available housing first. Now, I don't think state ownership of housing has ever worked well in the past. And there's lots of examples of rent controls blowing up and having unforeseen consequences. So a lot of people don't believe it because the governments are always telling them the government's going to save you and we know what we're doing. Clearly not. But I think if we give people labor mobility, housing mobility, and a free market in all of these things with minimum regulation, minimum dumb zoning, I think we can solve housing over the longer term. And I don't think government ownership makes sense, but maybe make it easier for developers to make the commitment to build the kind of housing that people are demanding. I don't understand the disconnect between the demand and the supply. Now, I don't want to drift into provincial, but there's some ugly crap going on between the provincial government and developers. I don't like it one bit. That's the kind of crap we hate. I mean, if you take corporatism and add a little racism, you'd have fascism. I don't like what's going on. Now, that's not a federal thing. So, okay, I'm cross-cutting all over the place, and I don't want to confuse the voters because the PPC, among many its basic principles, believes that we should stick to our Constitution. And that has a job description for the federal government. And we want to stick to that, and has a job description for the provinces, and they should stick to that. And we would decentralize radically. We would let Quebec be Quebec. We'd let Alberta be Alberta. We would cut equalization. By the way, that's how we would balance the budget in year one. We have 50, 60 billion in cuts, and equalization's one of them. And then we would get rid of the Canada Health Act. Oh, horror. But it's too easy for provinces to use the feds as the tax collector and the bad guy, and then send the money down, and then you hear the provinces whining for more money. How about this? We get rid of the Canada Health Transfer and the Canada Health Act. Maybe there's some coordinating role, but very small. No, not buildings full of civil servants. And let the provinces raise the taxes to deliver the healthcare they're responsible for, and let the voters reward or punish them based on performance. And honestly, I do not believe any Canadian province or territory to do a bad job of healthcare. Let them customize, let them have their experiments and watch what the others are doing. We do not need centralized control from Moscow, I mean Ottawa. So again, giving more power to local, the more local you are, the better you can implement social policy. I like to do a snarky quip and say social justice is so important that you should not delegate it to the government, because it's a leaky sieve and it's a machine that runs on money and sort of is made of people, but it is not compassionate. It's a machine. Compassion is local. It's eye to eye, a hand up. Here, have a sandwich. Nobody needs to look. One-on-one. Just because the government doesn't do something or steps back from something doesn't mean that people won't take care of each other. That is, I think, a belief that's been brainwashed into Canadians and Westerners over the after World War II, that if the government didn't do it, somehow it's not going to happen. But no, people aren't going to be starving in the streets if some program gets cut. I think we have too many programs. We can depend on each other, but we don't need to be dependent. And hey, the cupboard's bare. I mean, the credit card's maxed out. We got to get serious about this. So again, rambling a bit, but that's housing. I'd be happy to look at the next one.
Sure. So another overriding thing is rural infrastructure in the economy. So small rural areas like tiny Simcoe North often feel left out of the federal conversation about jobs and growth. I mean, including housing sometimes with, I mean, I know it's a provincial issue, as you said, but what like high-speed broadband internet and that kind of stuff, and also the energy independence of Canada comes into that, and also how can we expect our federal government to have trade agreements with other countries when they can't even get the provinces to agree on a trade agreement?
I love this one.
Okay.
PPC, since 2019, our platform had eliminating interprovincial trade barriers. I forget, it'd be like the same as increasing GDP by 3%. There are dumb trade barriers between provinces. There always have been, and I'm really glad Mark Carney, it's not just the conservatives borrowing our policy book, now it's the liberals too. We've been pushing for an east-west energy corridor from day one. And what we see as a government's role is to be a facilitator, and where necessary to use eminent domain or whatever to not let a single troublemaker hold up the country's things. And under Part 90 of the Constitution, we would use that federal power, that if we feel a project is for the national interest, we would override provinces who try to get in the way of energy and other critical infrastructure projects. And we'd eliminate certain bills like the anti-tanker bill. And I don't want to get rattling off bill numbers, but I do tell you, my team, we're always reading the bills, and we'll even go sometimes talk to our MP and say, hey, here's what 8% of your constituents here in Simcoe North think. And I try to present those things. So interprovincial trade. And we're the only party that isn't spooked by this Trump stuff. And it's been this, scary stuff coming. And then it doesn't. From day one, we said, Canada can't win a trade war with the US. They're our friends, they're our partners. Now we got a tough guy on the other side of the negotiating table, has all kinds of fancy disorienting tricks. I want Maxime Bernier across the table from Trump, not Poilievre. He's light. Maybe Carney has some skills in international stuff. I mean, he's been involved in it, but I mean, this negotiating out in public on TV, that's BS. That's not real. Real deals are made behind closed doors. And who knows, maybe some good stuff going on. But the PPC would go in and say, you know what, Donald, don't start imposing solutions on us until you describe what the problem is. And I know your trick about fentanyl and the border. You're just using that as an excuse to use emergency powers. And it's bullshit, and we can convince you otherwise. Yeah, PPC would be really tough about drug smuggling, and we would not be at all hesitant to really stick a finger in China's eye into all their infiltration. By the way, I don't care if they're affecting MPs. It's how they infiltrate business at all levels of government and do transnational coercion, all kinds of ugly stuff. And I'm just baffled as why our government hasn't pushed back. I think my theory is that they're so scared of being called racist that they deal with this very lightly. But I think we need to get tough because that's hurting us. So, I mean, so interprovincial trade is really important. Free trade with other countries, and sitting across the table with Trump and say, yeah, we are against tariffs. The PPC is against tariffs. We want to eliminate supply management. That's why Makk got kicked out of the Conservative Party, because this dairy, poultry, egg cartel, it's some Stalinistic BS. Why are those farmers so weak and helpless while beef and grain and vegetable farmers are doing just fine? And we got rid of the wheat board, and we still have wheat, and we're exporting it like crazy. So that's got to go. We know that's an irritant. 300, 200, 300% tariffs that's not a tariff. That is a please don't sell here. And I mean, look at the geography. New York State, back and forth. I mean, cheese and milk, why not? I would say, yeah, hey, Trump, you said reciprocal. How would we make them all zero? How do you like that? And if he comes back and says, well, I got a trade deficit, you're not buying enough of our stuff. I said, Don, that's not our problem. That's on you. Price your product better, improve the quality, or market it better. But we know what we're doing. We know we sell resources that you need, and we're politically compatible, culturally compatible. Sorry, no, there's no such thing as a Canadian terrorist. So don't worry about us. We're your brethren. We're your silly cousin in the attic, whatever you want to call it. And maybe he's got a point that we're being slack on defense. So PPC feels that Canada should have an independent, self-sustaining defense. Yes, NATO makes sense, but we don't want to get involved in foreign wars, except maybe as peacekeepers, or maybe in extremists where there's true humanitarian catastrophe where we have to go save people from persecution, like say homosexuals in the Middle East, or the Yazidis that were being slaughtered in Syria. You know, I could imagine Canadian troops saving lives, and people that are actually going to get killed, not Gucci bag carrying guys coming across Roxham Road. I mean, those aren't refugees. My parents were real refugees from World War II, from totalitarianism. So I know all about refugees. I also know how immigrants can fit into Canada. I just spoke with Frank Stronach, who I get along with very well and speak with him often. And that's an immigrant success story. That man came here. He was starving. He said, I'll never starve again. He took it. There's so many immigrant success stories in Canadian history, but what do we have now with mass immigration? It's immigrant failure stories all over. They're living on the streets. There's exploitation of undocumented workers. I don't want, it's a can of worms. There's trafficking of women. There's abusive labor. It's terrible housing conditions. All this stuff is happening because of it, and we're too dainty to crack down. maybe because we're scared of being called names, but we got to crack down. We don't want ethnic ghettos in Canada. We're a multicultural country. It's got nothing to do with the government. Multiculturalism is an output, not an input. If you're pushing it, you're going to get a mess. But a free and democratic society that maintains good quality control at its border will naturally become diverse. And, Toronto, for example, used to be an awesome restaurant culture town, but I don't know, it's getting ugly. I'm getting a little sad about it. We're not getting the richness of different cultures. We're getting all our problems being imported here. And the worst import with mass immigration is racism. We don't want that in Canada, but people are bringing it here, and we need to stop this. Or intertribal rivalries and all this stuff. Just look at the news that they do let you see. So that's, I guess I ranted a little bit there, but yeah, we need to improve our trade and at the same time be free traders with other free countries and be selective about it. So no, not globalism. Regional trading blocks of people who deal with each other fairly and understand each other, maybe a customs union even. No damn 51st state, because Canada is different from the US. We are a thing. We have a culture. No, Trudeau is wrong. We're not a post-national state. And we need to defend what we have. We should trade freely and at the same time make ourselves as self-sufficient as possible. Strategically, that's important. And secondly, for trade negotiations, to tell the guy across the table, I don't need to buy your stuff. We can make it ourselves. If you want to sell it to me, you got to beat us at it. Let's, game on. That's what I'd like Canada to be able to do. But we don't make semiconductors. I don't think we've ever done except at research of us. Like, there's things we can do. Look at what I'm doing. I'm building products in Canada and selling around the world. Most people don't believe they can do it because the Canadian tradition is, I don't know, some kind of damn European style national champions. We have Bombardier and Nortel and BlackBerry, and I've done business with all those companies myself. I'm still standing, but the Canadian disease of thinking a million young greenhorns can do anything. No, that doesn't work. You make a few people millionaires like Silicon Valley does, get aggressive, take on the world and beat it. Don't use protectionism. Be open to the raw competition. Yeah, import substitution incentives maybe a little bit to help a new industry get up and go. But, our established industries don't need government protection because it just turns them into dependent. We're building dependency traps for our businesses. So we got to decentralize, and the government should be a referee in the free market. It shouldn't be a player, and it shouldn't be a coach, and it shouldn't own the arena. And we're doing all of that. And when business captures government, well, look at what we got. Liberals and conservatives both do it. This is something PPC wouldn't do. If I'm your MP, I'm in Ottawa, and some business lobby group or corporate leaders want to talk to me, of course, they have the right to speak to the representatives. I'll open the door. I say, okay, sit down. Don't tell me any trade secrets. I'll turn the webcam on, and all the people in Simcoe North can hear what they have to say and what I have to say to them. No secret having beers at Chateau Laurier or crap like that. And you know what? If you're a business lobby, you want to change the world, you want to have laws the way you want, don't go have a secret meeting with an MP. Don't go into the conservative or liberal backroom and make a deal that then they use their whip to enforce by making their clapping seals vote a certain way. Advertise to the public, convince the public that what you're saying is right. You do the lobbying, and then the people will tell the elected representatives what to do at election time or in between. I would have very frequent town halls. I would have straw polls. I would do all kinds of engagement. And I'll tell you, if the people of Simcoe North say have a strong view that my trusted associates tell me, yeah, 70% of the people here believe on this way on the topic that's opposite to the way I think, and I stand up in Parliament, I will vote the way the people want me to vote. Now, I may, just as a note, say my own personal conscience, I do want to say on the record that I personally don't agree with this and why. But as an MP, I'm going to vote the way the people want. My job is to figure out what the heck that is amongst all the din and BS. And in a video I did recently, free speech isn't about talking, it's about listening. If you can't hear all the different data that you need to make an informed citizen's decision, that's the true tragedy when speech and media and everything is censored, curated, suppressed. We need an open market in ideas too. And that's what I would set out to do. And I'm very proud the PPC is a party, I believe the Greens also, who will not whip votes. So you're an MP. If I go to Ottawa, I vote the way I want. Maxi Bernier, my leader, if he tells me, Steve, I don't like that, I said, okay, I'll hear what you say, but I'll contradict my leader if I have to, and that's
I
it.
do have to bring it to a close. We're over the time.
Sure.
So we do really appreciate your taking the time and letting us know and giving everybody information. I didn't interrupt too much because I'd rather hear what you guys have to say,
Okay.
than have my questions sort of that people want, like, you know what you want to tell people, and I think they should hear what your
Yeah.
passion is.
Yeah, I'm sorry I went on a rant, but
problem.
I'd be happy to answer your questions in a follow-up email because I think I have answers to all the things that the topics that we're interested
Okay, I'll
interesting to your
let
people.
them know, and we'll get that out to you.
Okay.
Again, appreciate your time again. Thank you.
Yeah, same to you. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.